She stood on the dock, furious. 30 top engineers had failed to fix her $1 million boat. Then a poor man in oil-stained jeans stepped forward, holding his daughter's hand. Laughed at. Dismissed. Until he whispered to the machine and the impossible happened. But what no one knew was he was not just fixing a boat. He was rewriting what the world thought about genius, pride, and power. And by the time the truth came out, everyone, from billionaires to world leaders, was begging for his help. Who was this man? And why did he walk away from the very empire he helped save? Watch till the end, because the quietest people often carry the loudest legacies. The docks smelled like salt and old money. Yachts glittered under the summer sun, each one shinier than the last. At the very end of the pier, a crowd had gathered, not to admire the water, but to watch a storm erupt. A woman in designer heels, hair perfectly pinned back, pointed at the half-submerged speedboat like it had personally insulted her. This is the third day. 30 engineers and no one can make it work. She waved her tablet around like a weapon. Is there no one in this town who understands machinery? Her voice echoed off the marina walls. A few technicians in uniform stood awkwardly nearby, wiping sweat from their brows. They had tried. Checked every wire. Replaced half the engine. Still, the thing refused to start. Some blamed the salt water. Some blamed bad design. But no one had answers. No one until he arrived. Leaning on a cane made from a broken mop handle. Wearing a faded cap and oil-stained jeans. A man who looked like he belonged behind a fishing shack, not near $1 million yachts. He held his daughter's hand tightly. She was no older than 10. Her hair was tied with a shoelace. He whispered something to her and she nodded, eyes scanning the scene. The woman spotted them. Her gaze moved from the man's worn boots to his chipped fingernails. "And you are?" she asked, voice coated in disbelief. He replied calmly. "I am a mechanic. Boats, bikes, tractors. I fix things." She scoffed. 30 certified engineers failed. You think you are smarter than them? He looked at the boat. Then back at her. If you are so smart, then fix my boat, she snapped. The crowd chuckled. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "This is going to be good." He did not flinch. Just walked slowly to the edge of the dock. Knelt down. Closed one eye. Stared at the boat like it was a puzzle only he could see. His daughter crouched beside him. He whispered again. She nodded. He asked for a screwdriver. Someone handed one over, curious. He opened a small panel on the side. Pulled out a corroded connector. Held it up to the sun. Then asked for wire. Any wire. A kid from the boat cleaning crew ran to fetch it. Minutes passed. The woman crossed her arms. Tapped her foot. The crowd grew restless. But the man moved with patience. Precision. Like he had fixed 1,000 machines just like this. His hands were steady. Despite the arthritis. Despite the years. He connected the new wire. Secured it with tape. Closed the panel. Then looked at the rich woman. "Try it now." She laughed. But someone pressed the ignition switch anyway. There was a click. A hum. Then, the engine roared to life. Water churned behind the stern. The boat lifted slightly, stable, ready to glide. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One of the engineers cursed under his breath. The woman stared, stunned. What did you do?" He wiped his hands on a cloth. "Your smart engineers looked for big problems. I looked for the right one." The crowd erupted into applause. Phones filmed his every move. His daughter beamed. The woman opened her purse. Pulled out a wad of cash. Held it out. He did not take it. "Pay the boy who brought the wire. He helped more than the men you hired." Then he turned to leave. But the woman called out. "Wait. What is your name?" He looked over his shoulder. "Most call me Dad." Then he walked away. Leaving behind a running boat, a humiliated millionaire, and 30 speechless engineers. But the story was only beginning. Because that same evening someone uploaded the clip. It went viral. Millions watched the old man kneel beside the yacht and whisper to his daughter. They watched the boat roar to life like a sleeping beast awoken. And they asked, who was this man? What else could he fix? And why had the world overlooked him until now? The internet hunted for him. But he was not on Instagram. Not on Facebook. He was not selling anything. He had no website. Just a shed behind a gas station. And a daughter who believed he could fix anything. And in that shed a phone rang. For the first time in months. A voice on the line said, "We saw what you did. We have a fleet of ships and they are failing one by one. Can we send someone?" He hesitated. Looked at his daughter, who was drawing gears on the floor. Then said, "Send them." Because maybe, just maybe, the world was finally ready to hear from the man no one listened to. The man who fixed more than boats. He fixed what others gave up on. And the storm was only just starting. The next morning, the shed door creaked open. Sunlight spilled onto rusted tools, dented toolboxes, and a workbench covered in gears, bolts, and coffee-stained sketches. He was already awake. Had been since before dawn. Fingers blackened from grease. Eyes sharp from years of watching machines breathe and break. A black SUV pulled into the gravel driveway. It did not belong there. Too polished. Too silent. Out stepped a woman in a navy blue blazer, followed by a man holding a tablet and blinking like the sun offended him. She approached slowly, heels clicking against stone. "You are Mr. Hale?" He nodded. His daughter peeked from behind the curtain. "From Oceanus Marine?" he asked. She seemed surprised. "Yes, that is right. How did you? You are the only ones who make twin-turbine electric yachts in this region. I saw your failure rate climbing 3 months ago. My guess? Power conversion issue." She looked at the man with the tablet. He tapped fast. "Check data." His eyes widened. "He is right. Our diagnostics only flagged it last week." The woman inhaled. Stepped closer. "You have no internet presence. No certifications on file. Yet you fixed a boat 30 engineers failed to understand. Who are you really, Mr. Hale?" He turned away. Grabbed a spanner. Began tightening a bolt on an old outboard motor. "Just someone who used to be somebody." She frowned. "We are prepared to offer you a contract. Full relocation. Resources. The lab team. Name your salary." He looked over his shoulder. "Why now?" "Because you are the first person we have seen who understands machines like they are alive. We need that. The industry needs that." He wiped his hands. Pointed at a dusty cabinet in the corner. She opened it. Inside were framed papers. Degrees. Patents. A photo of him shaking hands with a Japanese engineer beneath a sign that read Kyoto Fusion Labs, 1999. She blinked. "You designed the original magnetic turbine model?" He nodded. "I did." Then walked away when they tried to sell it to the military. Silence filled the shed. The man with the tablet looked stunned. "Sir, that technology fuels over 1,000 hybrid vessels today." "Yes, but I never wanted it used for war." His daughter walked out barefoot, holding a model boat made from spoons and batteries. He smiled. "Now I build things she can learn from." The woman lowered her voice. "Let us build something better. Clean ships. Rescue fleets. Humanitarian craft. No weapons. You choose the project. We just want your mind back in the world." He studied her for a long moment. Then looked at his daughter. "Will you have space for her too?" The woman knelt. "I think the world needs minds like hers just as much as yours." He nodded. "Then we will come. But only if the first boat we build goes to the Coast Guard in Ghana. They have saved thousands with vessels that are falling apart." She blinked. Agreed. A deal was signed on the hood of the SUV with a borrowed pen and a grease-stained napkin. And 2 weeks later, he walked into the Oceanus Marine Innovation Lab, wearing the same cap, holding the same hand. But this time engineers stood and clapped. Not because of his title, but because of what he had built. Because when he spoke, they listened. And when he pointed to a flaw on the blueprint, they fixed it without debate. It was not long before his daughter was given her own desk, her own set of tools. And the first prototype they designed together? Not a yacht, not a speedboat, but a solar-powered water ambulance. Built for flood zones. Quiet, fast, unstoppable. 1 month after its launch, a news report went viral. A boy had been saved in the Philippines. Another in Louisiana. Then 3 more in Bangladesh. And beneath every photo was the same name engraved on the hull. Project Hale. The rich woman who once shouted on the dock? She tried to send flowers. He returned them. With a note that read, "Some things run better when built with heart instead of pride." And from then on, every elite engineer who visited the lab, every intern who studied the schematics, heard the same whispered truth. When 30 engineers failed, a poor dad succeeded, because he listened to the boat, not his ego. And somewhere in the corner of that lab, a little girl holding a soldering pen kept sketching new things. Because in the world her father helped fix, dreamers had a place again. And not all geniuses wore suits. Some wore oil-stained jeans. And held their future in the palm of a child's hand. Months passed. The water ambulance, Project Hale, became more than a vessel. It became a movement. News anchors across continents ran headlines. Built by a forgotten genius and his daughter. The machine that outran the flood. A father's legacy, a daughter's dream. Requests flooded the Oceanus Marine inbox. Coastal clinics in Indonesia. Mountain villages in Nepal. Delta communities in the Congo. All asking the same question. Can we have one too? Mr. Hale, now called Engineer of the Forgotten, refused to mass produce. We are not selling machines, he told the board. We are solving emergencies. So he built a team. Not from Ivy League recruits, but from overlooked minds. College dropouts who spent more time in garages than libraries. Refugee engineers who carried brilliance in silence. Mechanics with no degrees but hands full of knowledge. He called them the quiet force. And together they built miracles. Boats that could purify floodwater while sailing. Solar drones that mapped disaster zones in real time. Floating medical kits. River-powered charging docks. Each invention bore a small etched symbol. A gear wrapped in vines. Nature and machine. Harmony. Balance. It caught the world's attention. Leaders called. Agencies pleaded. Documentary crews followed him, but he rarely spoke on camera. Let the machines speak, he would say. And they did. One winter, Brazil faced its worst flood in 20 years. Bridges collapsed. Villages vanished. Hundreds stranded. Before any government arrived, 2 Hale boats appeared. Steered by volunteers. Doctors aboard. Blankets. Food. No one knew how they got there. But they ran silently across the water. Never stopped. Never sank. A little boy, clinging to a roof, was lifted into one of them. He stared at the control panel. Then whispered, "It smells like sun and wood and hope." The camera captured that moment. It became the image of the year. Meanwhile, back at the lab, Hale's daughter turned 12. She presented her first solo invention. A collapsible water purifier the size of a lunchbox. Her father watched her with pride. "She will go further than I ever did," he told the team. But not all applauded. Jealousy grew. A corporate giant, Thandrix Technologies, launched their own fleet of sleek AI-driven rescue boats. They claimed Hale's boats were outdated. "Emotion does not belong in engineering," their CEO said. The media stirred the rivalry. Heart versus hardware. Legacy versus logic. So the UN proposed a test. A controlled simulation. Flood a test zone. Measure rescue time. Durability. Energy use. And most of all, impact. Hale accepted. But not for pride. For proof. The day of the test, reporters crowded the observation deck. Thandrix boats glided in, glowing with LED precision. Slick. Cold. Fast. Then came the Hale fleet. Simpler. Wood and steel. Warmth in their curves. They moved like swans across the water. The test began. Dummies floated in mock currents. Obstacles deployed. Thandrix drones swerved, scanned, blinked. One boat crashed. Another misread depth and stalled. The Hale boats? They adapted. Not with AI, but with human instinct. Manual overrides. Floating sensors. Crew-trained reflex. In 48 minutes, the Hale team rescued all mock victims. Thandrix rescued barely half. The crowd erupted. A journalist asked Hale, "What do you have that they do not?" He held up his daughter's hand. "This. A reason. Technology is only as good as the heart guiding it." That clip became immortal. Played in engineering schools. Etched on banners. Printed in textbooks. And when Oceanus opened its new innovation center, they named it the Hale Lab for Human First Engineering. The building had no CEO office. Only workbenches. Open blueprints. A glass wall overlooking a still lake, where new designs were tested. By children. Students. Mothers. Farmers. Not just engineers. Because Hale had proved that sometimes the world changes, not with a patent, but with a question. If 30 experts fail, what did they forget to see? And the answer was always simple. Listen, care, and build for the ones no one builds for. Autumn arrived with a gentler sky. Golden leaves gathered at the doorstep of the Hale Lab. Inside, the once oil-stained walls now displayed blueprints framed like art. Not for pride, for memory. Each frame told a story. A rescue in Uganda. A storm in Fiji. A wildfire in California. All answered with something built here by hand, by heart. Mr. Hale stood quietly in the corner, watching his daughter guide a group of new students. She was confident now. Measuring. Sketching. Explaining current flow like she had invented it herself. And in a way she had. A soft knock on the glass door. An assistant entered. NATO. UNESCO. And the Ministry of Climate. All on hold, sir. They want you to lead the global emergency design forum. He sighed. Again? Yes, sir. They insist. They are offering to rename it after you. He looked down at his hands. Calloused, a little shaky now. Then at the desk where his daughter had left a new prototype. It looked like a dragonfly. Wings made from solar mesh. Light as a feather. It pulsed with silent energy. He stepped outside. The lake was still. The trees shimmered gold. And for the first time in years he sat on the bench instead of fixing it. A familiar figure joined him. The woman from Oceanus. Now older. Still sharp. Why do you keep saying no? She asked. You built the impossible. You gave people hope with nothing but wire, wood, and wisdom. The world wants more of you. He nodded. But that is the problem. The world keeps wanting people to give until they are empty. She waited. He continued. I gave everything I had when no one listened. Now that they do, I am not sure I have anything left to prove. She smiled. But what if it is not about proving anymore? What if it is about passing the fire before it burns out? He turned his head. Inside the lab, his daughter had just solved a torque issue on the whiteboard. 3 adult engineers clapped. She barely looked up. Focused. Determined. He chuckled softly. You are right. Maybe it is time. The next day the announcement shook the tech world. Hail to launch global fellowship. Human first engineers wanted. No degrees required. No nationality preferred. Only one condition. Show us what problem in your village keeps you awake at night, and how you would fix it. Thousands applied. A girl from rural Afghanistan with a hand-powered defibrillator. A boy from Ghana who built a drone from bicycle parts. A group from South America who floated an entire classroom on recycled barrels. Mr. Hale reviewed every single submission. Marked them with a red pen. And at the bottom of each approved one he wrote, Build it. We will help. The world changed again. This time not with press releases. Not with billion-dollar mergers. But with small hands. Rough sketches. And courage that no algorithm could measure. Mr. Hale retired from the lab floor. But every Friday he sat in a wooden chair near the entrance. Children would come. Show their ideas. Some wild. Some simple. He listened to each one. Offered no judgment. Only 2 words. Try it. One evening as the sun dipped behind the trees, his daughter sat beside him. She was taller now. Her fingers stained with ink and copper dust. She leaned on his shoulder. You know, she whispered. Some people still laugh that a poor man fixed a boat 30 engineers could not. He smiled. Good. Let them laugh. While we sail past them, quietly changing the world. And as dusk embraced the water, the lab lights behind them flickered on. A new generation was still building. Still dreaming. Still listening. Because of a poor dad who refused to quit. Because brilliance never wore a label. And sometimes true genius was simply the will to care when others walked away. Years later, the story of Mr. Hale was no longer just a tale whispered at tech conferences or printed in innovation journals. It became a parable. Taught in schools. Shared around campfires. Told by parents to children not just as history but as hope. Hope that brilliance can come from barns, not just boardrooms. Hope that a quiet man with a rusted wrench could outshine a room full of suits. Hope that a broken system could be mended, not by force but by one heartful act at a time. Mr. Hale passed away on a quiet spring morning. No headlines screamed. No flashing cameras. Just the sound of birds outside the open window of his small home, once a workshop, now a resting place. His hands, once hardened by work, rested gently over a photo. It was the first boat he and his daughter built together. A note sat beside it. In his handwriting. Build with heart. Teach with patience. Led by fixing quietly. At his memorial, people flew in from every continent. Not celebrities. Not officials. But fishermen. Rescue workers. Flood survivors. Mothers. Children. All carrying stories of how a small invention saved someone they loved. His daughter, now a young engineer in her own right, stood before the crowd with tears in her eyes and strength in her voice. He never asked for applause. He only asked that we care. That we never look at a broken thing and walk away. That we listen closely because even machines whisper when they are in pain. And if you listen long enough, you might just hear the world asking to be fixed. She then unveiled his final design. A blueprint for a floating school that could travel rivers to teach children where buildings could not reach. It would be the last thing he ever drew. And the first project she would lead in his honor. As the crowd applauded, someone whispered from the back. He fixed a boat. But what he really did was teach us how to fix the world. The wind carried those words across the lake, through the trees, into the hands of the next builder, the next dreamer, the next poor dad who might one day show the world that humility is power, and love is the sharpest tool of all.